Dirato. Thank you, and welcome once again to Where Are They Now? And as we've been promoting, and I said this a week ago with Eric Heff from Iowa State, as many times I've had my friend Stan Weber on from Kansas State, we ought to send you a letter jacket, and you'd be just part and parcel of the alumni group right here. I don't know if you wear it.
That would be. I saw in the Oklahoma State media guide that the letter jacket looked more like Leslie O'Neal about ready to kill me, 2 times bigger. So congratulations to a superstar player, both in college and the pros, to go to the College Football Hall of Fame. But I was flipping through, and sure enough, I go, oh, yeah, that was me about ready to be Leslie O'Neal. And the picture right next door was Jimmy Johnson, and I thought, yep, what a time of my life that I was recruited by Jimmy Johnson to possibly go to Oklahoma State. It was one of my top choices. I ended up going to K-State, and then lucky enough in 1983 to upset the Cowboys with Leslie O'Neal out there and Jimmy Johnson as the head coach. So, great memories for me, but I don't want to remember all the bruises because, man, Leslie O'Neal was good.
And of course, we reminded our fans and listeners that Stan Weber, former All Big 8, yes, Big 8, not Big 12, Big 8, quarterback at Kansas State, and part and parcel of that success story there. And a long time now, that's a nice way of saying you're a veteran, I guess, Stan, a long time analyst.
34 years of broadcasting. Flat out old, I think.
Long time analyst for football and basketball at K-State. And obviously want to get into the obvious here. Oklahoma State making the trip up to take on K-State on Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock in Manhattan. Both teams coming off losses. Probably neither team going to be in a good frame of mind and be a little edgy and annoyed. This should be a good one, I would think.
Well, I think so. It's been a good series. It's been competitive all the time. I think there's a lot of respect. Both teams like to play with a physical nature, kind of an old school, and they're well coached, set their jaw, and get ready to play. Oklahoma State obviously is just so good from A to Z. The defense and the things that they're doing under Coach Knowles are pretty incredible, and the offense is set all the way across the board with a returning starting quarterback, and then Tylan Wallace and Chuba Hubbard and L.D. Brown. I mean, it is a very, very good football team. But K-State has the capability to fight and claw, play good special teams, and they're going to need a little bit of a magical performance. Last year when Oklahoma came to town, no one thought K-State would be able to play at that level, and all day long, K-State played at an awesome level. So sometimes you just have to have those days where you play really well, and K-State's going to need that to be able to play against Oklahoma State.
And I guess that's a good place to start because in those games that you mentioned, a guy like Skylar Thompson was part and parcel of the operation. That's not the case this year. Tell us all about Will Howard, the freshman who has been pressed into duty at quarterback.
Will Howard is a young man from Pennsylvania that was very interested in Kansas State because Carson Wentz is his favorite player around the Philadelphia area where he grew up. And so when he realized that Carson Wentz was coached by the guys who are now at K-State when he was at North Dakota State, he reached out to them, and they fell in love with him immediately. He's a taller quarterback, a stronger guy, does not have a body type of a freshman at all, 6'4", 6'5". He's not slow, but he's not a speedster running the football. But the kind of maturity that he has is really off the board, the kind of calmness he has. It's a tough duty to step in and try to take over mid-year when you didn't have spring ball, you didn't have the normal fall workouts. And Skylar Thompson's been a guy who started for the Wildcats 30 times over 4 years. So this is his 4th year of being K-State's main starting quarterback. And he really did a real good job of running the K-State offense the way Courtney Messingham, the offensive coordinator, and head coach Chris Kleiman wants it run. Obviously, it's hard to step in there. So what you've got to do is have a good understanding of football, have a competitive nature, and be calm so you don't beat yourself up too much. And that's what Will Howard is. He's not a refined product. K-State's not as efficient on offense as when they had Skylar Thompson as a quarterback. There's no way you can say that. But somehow Will Howard's been there, basically played over a half against Texas Tech, and then won his next 2 games as a starter, including at TCU. So he kind of has 3 wins underneath his belt before he, unfortunately for K-State, threw 3 interceptions against West Virginia. So it's probably a little bit more all over the board than it would be with Skylar Thompson. Skylar was very predictable. So Will Howard, smart kid, calm kid, really understands football, has good leadership capabilities, all the intangibles he has. He just doesn't have the experience yet playing down after down against this level of competition.
And to complicate matters, another freshman, he has turned out to be a heck of a find in Deuce Vaughn. But when you're going against an experienced defense like an Oklahoma State, and I mentioned this before you came on, Stan, I think this is when timing is everything, obviously, and this is probably not good timing to get arguably the two best defenses in the Big 12 back to back from a K-State viewpoint. West Virginia did a pretty good job, to say the least, last week. And now you got Oklahoma State is probably better than they are. That's a tough chore for young players.
It definitely is. And Deuce Vaughn is just splashed onto the scene, and not only on the scene here in the Big 12 or in this region, but, nationally. ATN over at Clemson in their last game finally joined him as the only players in the country that have 300-plus yards rushing this year and 300-plus yards receiving. So just think about that as a true freshman. He does a very good job of running routes out of the backfield. He can go into the slot. He catches the ball well, and he's hard to tackle. But it's a lot of stress to put on a freshman. I mean, I remember when Thurman Thomas was a freshman. I remember when Barry Sanders was a freshman. Man, they were good, but they weren't nearly as good as they were 2 and 3 years later. So, it's a tough duty to have the pressure that, you need to be a big play player as a true freshman. But he's again, it's kind of crazy. I would say a lot of the same things. A competitor, very mature. His dad is a scout for the Dallas Cowboys, lives in the Austin area in Texas. And he also was a longtime assistant football coach in college football, including being at Texas. So somehow Deuce Vaughn learned a ton from his dad about the strategy of football. He really understands coverages and those kind of things. He's kind of a senior in football knowledge and a freshman academically, probably in the classes he's taken. But, yeah, it's a ton of pressure for two freshmen to lead your offense, basically.
Let's stay on that side of the ball. And I don't know what the availability will be, but Briley Moore's been dinged up. Your solid tight end who, all you got to know is he's got 19 catches and 3 of those are for touchdowns, so he's pretty handy around the goal line. But what's his status, at least as you know it?
Well, it sounds like he didn't break anything, and he got hit. It seems like a helmet in the lower back area. So I'm not sure if it's spasms, bruised muscles or what it is, but he's kind of that iffy period that you don't know yet when it's a Wednesday. But, Tom, you've been around a long time. It seems like guys, if they don't have something that's broken, when that adrenaline starts flowing, it seems like they want to get back on the field. And Briley Moore absolutely is that kind of kid. He played at Northern Iowa. He learned about football in Missouri Valley, and he thought North Dakota State was just the biggest deal. The way they played, the discipline they played with. He just looked up and said, wow, that is amazing. And so when he had a chance to possibly hook up with those guys at K-State, they knew about him at Northern Iowa as well. So he appreciates playing against Oklahoma State. It's not Southern Illinois on Saturday, and that probably just creates a greater desire to want to get back out there on the field. So I'm hopeful that Briley Moore will be okay. It's always kind of half 50-50 right now on Wednesday, but usually it goes up to 60, then 80, and then closer to 100% on Saturday.
What's the receiving core like as compared to what we've been used to seeing in the last 3-4 years?
Well, I think that the receiving core, Dalton Schoen was a guy who had a good tryout in the National Football League and was a critical component to K-State with Skylar Thompson throwing the ball so accurately. You didn't need very big windows. They read the coverage very quickly. Those two guys could hook up, and now you do not have him. He graduated. So Malik Knowles is a guy that's caused some problems for teams at times. He's a tall receiver that has capabilities of running, but this year he's had some trouble latching on to passes. He had a touchdown catch against West Virginia for 35 yards. But they run through probably 5 or 6 different players, and they just become interchangeable. They don't really care. But there's no one who scares you like a Tylan Wallace. They really are just workmanlike guys doing their job. And it's really up to the quarterback to understand, oh, you're open. I got to get the ball to you. And sometimes the window's, real quick, or wait a window and go over. And that's where it makes it a little tough, because if you had Tylan Wallace, you could tell a freshman quarterback like Will Howard, hey, just throw it over to him, okay?
Yeah.
Throw it high up the sideline if you don't know what to do. But K-State doesn't have that. They really have got to be on the same page, both the receiver running a good route and the quarterback throwing it at the right time and accurately for K-State's passing game to work.
Now, this defense for Kansas State has shown up more times than not, and you got a guy like Hubert who I think a lot of teams in this league would like to have him. And Wiley probably doesn't get enough credit as being disruptive there at defensive tackle. How do you assess this defense here this year?
Well, Drew Wiley is a guy who's played outstanding football, and he is a guy who's a first-year starter as a senior. Okay, so man, he has been a splash player for K-State, playing that defensive tackle position, along with Eli Huggins, who didn't start until this year as well. So K-State ended up being better there than they thought. They thought they'd be good on the outside. Khalid Duke is a real athletic player that last year played a little bit of linebacker. Really didn't play until the last game of the year, but he stepped in and done a very nice job as a starter. Then Wyatt Hubert is the guy who was first team All Big 12, playing a defensive end position. He gains a lot of attention, obviously, the double team, slide the protection his way. But he is a guy who can disrupt, rush the passer, play well. That front wall for K-State's pretty good. You know, that's one of the strengths of their team. Otherwise, what they do is very unique in the fact that they believe in playing a lot of players, keeping them fresh, keeping everyone engaged, keeping backups and third teamers in a position of getting better every day in practice. They think that builds the program. So, Tom, it's going to be wild, but K-State's willing to play 20 different players on defense anytime, any combination. When they talk about their linebackers, they're not two, they're literally four, okay? And it's so many positions are like that where K-State says we're going to play a lot of players. Now, it sounds really good as COVID protection, right? I mean, this is a Chris Kleiman philosophy, period, for building a program and engaging your athletes and making them pay attention every day at practice because they think they're going to get on the field. Build team unity. Like, it's not me against you, Tom. We're both going to get a play. Let's help each other. I think it's a really unique and cool way of doing things, and it's going to help K-State if they have some COVID issues or if they have injuries. Yes. But what's amazing is the defense played at a high level. The last 5 possessions by Oklahoma in the game in Norman, Oklahoma had 2 turnovers and no points.
Right.
So the group came together in the second half against Oklahoma. They were rotating so many guys through. It was the Wildcats' second game. They got shocked in the opener, obviously losing a lead against Arkansas State. They went to Oklahoma, and then the second half, something clicked in, and they all bought in. They all started playing at a higher level and being more physical. So K-State isn't about stars. It's about keeping a lot of people fresh and keeping a lot of people engaged. So I'm telling you, they will play 20 guys, and sometimes you'll see like a hockey line shift times 2. Like 6 guys might run in the middle of a drive and say, okay, let's bring these guys in, and they're really not subs. They're just taking their turn.
Do they change schematically with each shift, if you will?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
They're pretty much still four down guys in the front, and you know they have the convention.
The even front 4-2,
Yeah.
5 DBs, and then just all there's all kinds of things you can do with coverages and everything else.
Right.
But no, they have everyone buying into the system, and it's it's one of the. I mean, I just shake my head that this is a strategy that's been employed last year, and then they kind of upped it times 2 this year, and some of it was COVID related. They put in Echo Boydo. How about Echo Boydo?
What a name, huh? That's good.
He's from Lawrence, Kansas, right? And he's been around K-State for a while. Really hasn't played any significant downs at all. Gets thrown out as a starter against Oklahoma because of COVID. He's not moved. He's still the starter. That's the kind of thing where they just invest in kids, believe in them, and say be ready to play. You never know when you're going to get a chance. And here, one of the funny things in our state, and this doesn't really matter to your state, but there's some Kansans who can hear you right now. Okay, KU plays K-State, and KU has 27 players from the state of Kansas, period. And K-State has over 60, right? So K-State invests in the Kansas kids. Echo Boydo starts out of Lawrence, Kansas. K-State has a starter, and Kansas only has 1 player on their whole starting lineup that's from Kansas.
Wow.
So, it's kind of one of those things where you poke your rival because K-State's a school where they believe in Kansans, they believe in the walk-on program, they believe in development, and Echo Boydo out of Lawrence, Kansas is a starter and was part of that glue that started playing great in the second half of the Oklahoma game. They're 21 points behind Oklahoma. Things didn't look good, and then all of a sudden the defense just started playing well. And it was with all these guys rotating through, and they've not stopped. They've continued on with it, and the players have done a nice job. They're not dominant, but, man, they're pretty good. This defense does some really nice things, and there's a lot of guys who contribute.
Of course, when you're mentioning Kansas State, and we're going back to Coach Snyder's days, and I guess things have kind of followed suit with Kleiman. I mean, you're talking special teams, and unfortunately, I guess for Kansas State, if you take away returns, you take away not just for scores, but for territorial edge, if you take away blocks, if you take away all the things that come with special teams work, then those unconventional scores become huge that Kansas State does not put on the board.
Well, yeah, but it's from a K-State perspective on the positive. There's always trade-offs. The positive is, man, it's nice when you get those kind of plays.
True. You're
that dangerous, and I kind of study football in a weird way. I won't go into how much I'm into football, Tom, but more than anybody alive, and I'm into it in the NFL as well. And really, what you just described is Bill Belichick's New England Patriots. As Tom Brady got old, okay, I'm not talking about this year, but last year and the year before, Tom was not functioning at the high level. He didn't have very good receivers, right? Do you know how they made up for all that? Special teams, just killing teams in special teams.
Right.
I think they blocked 4 or 5 punts last year in the NFL. There's hardly any blocked punts in the NFL. Last year, New England blocked either 4 or 5 punts. So it's really kind of that same formula. Like, okay, we might not be good enough to outplay you every down on offense and defense, but let's add some special teams. Let's take advantage of areas where you don't work as hard or you have a weakness or something like that. And it's just become a core part of K-State football. And it's a great tradition that Bill Snyder started. His son, Sean Snyder, took over as the special teams coordinator. And then they've just handed it down, and Coach Kleiman's allowed that attitude to continue. And so it's a lot of fun. K-State special teams need to be good, and they normally are. Not only are they good making some big plays, they just don't make mistakes. They haven't made a mistake yet this year, unless you count maybe a missed field goal. But they made 2 field goals over 50 yards already this year. So it's just very, very sound at worst. And then if you mess up a little bit, they'll take advantage of it and really make a big play.
Yeah, and it appeared, again, outside looking in, it appeared that West Virginia covered very well last year and didn't give Kansas State a whole lot of room to hurt you in the special teams. And, of course, Oklahoma State's aware of that as well. Hey, in the time we got left, I want to run a couple of things by you. What's the Coach Kleiman? You've been around Coach Snyder forever. What was the transition like for you outside looking in, and you're part of the program, so it really is inside looking in?
Well, it's amazing that Coach Kleiman and what he's trying to do with the program is what he wants to do. That's the number one thing. In bold headline letters, Chris Kleiman won national championships almost every year at North Dakota State. Mm-hmm. He believes in his coaching style. He doesn't need to look anywhere else for advice, right?
Right.
So he wants to do it his way, period. Now how about this? That it happens to be very close to how Bill Snyder decided he wanted to win football games at K-State as well. So there's no disrespect. There's no reason to have animosity, but it's not like Coach Snyder sitting in his office giving him advice every other day. Chris Kleiman came in, he said, win the dang day. It printed shirts, man. It was all over the social media. Win the dang day was one of the first things that Coach Kleiman said. Guess what Bill Snyder said over and over, and people just heard forever and almost forgot he was saying? Let's just get a little bit better every day.
Yeah,
that's what he dedicated his football team to do, and that's what he said. And he said it very quietly, so you're wondering, is there much emphasis? The fact is, there was a ton of emphasis. So guess what? They both believe in just taking care of today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't let one game be bigger than it needs to be. Win or lose, you got to move on. So many things are consistent between the two. But I don't ever like anybody in this big-time athletics to try to copy others. I think that is just a sure death sentence for your career. That's my belief. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Mm-hmm. Even if you think Jimmy Johnson's a super successful coach, don't try to act like you're Jimmy Johnson. Be yourself. Learn how they were successful, but be yourself. And that's what I think is so cool about this is Chris Kleiman could be going to any school, and I think he would have executed just like he is. And for K-State's players and people like me and the fans, it's like the same thing. Usually I get on these interviews like I'm doing with you and previewing K-State, and one of the things they'll say to me is, "It looks just like a Bill Snyder coach team. What's going on?" And I say, "You're right. That's the way it feels to us as well. But it's absolutely, and this is a distinction I think so important, to be respectful to Chris Kleiman. He's doing it his way because that's what he did at North Dakota State, and it has nothing to do that he's at K-State. We're just lucky that it's a nice mix, and we haven't had to take 2 steps backwards to keep the train rolling. There hasn't been a big transition period. The players know exactly what he means, and it's been a lot of fun. Chris Kleiman is a younger version of a same-style coach.
Last thing, and it has to be a thrill for you to see your sons in the program, one in the coaching staff, one still playing. For you to look down there and see them, that's a great way to hook up especially on a Saturday.
Yeah, it really is, and it's especially nice because when I put myself in the role as a father talking to them, it's great that I'm announcing for 34 years. I've been doing it. It's their whole life, right? They've seen me doing this before they were born and all that kind of stuff. So it's just been a part of their life. But they don't take it for granted, and they've dreamt they've been in the stands just rooting for K-State like crazy and dreaming of being down there on the field. When they watch a big guy go by in uniform warming up or something, you just remember when you were a kid, you go, wow, How cool is that guy? Man, wouldn't it be great to be out there? They thought that their whole life. And so now that they're there, they don't take it for granted. And that's what's fun for me is they still have the joy, Tom. They remember the little kids that are watching them, and they have an appreciation for it. And what's even more cool is they're grown-up men now, and they have an obligation to play at a high level. And that's really cool. I mean, sure, everybody wants to have a good performance. You want to do a good broadcast today, and there's a lot of listeners counting on you. But just think about, you walk out on the field and you truly understand how much those fans are counting on you for creating joy on this Saturday. How when you're in the stands and you saw a player limp off to the side a little bit going, come on, man, suck it up, play hard, worry about being sore tomorrow. You can do it. We're counting on you. When you're that player walking off and you feel a little sore after a hit, you need to be reminded, quit feeling sorry for yourself. Go make a play, man. Go win this thing because you have a ton of responsibility. And that's what's fun is they really realize there's a lot of smiles on faces of kids from 5 years old to kids who are 95 years old. If your team wins and you take care of business, you're not only doing it for yourself, you're doing it for that whole fandom. And that's what's cool is that they play hard or they coach hard because they feel responsible, not just for their job, but they are truly, purple-blooded K-Staters wanting to win for the fans as much as themselves.
Well, I certainly can appreciate what you're saying, having spent time up there, and I know where you're coming from. It should be in that regard, Kansas State, no matter what the situation, is always in a ball game for sure. So I look forward to the one Saturday and we'll see how that works out. 2 teams that'll be wanting to turn it around and get a win. Appreciate your time as always, though, Bud. Good to catch up with you again. Sounds like things are going well
Tom,
for you.
Thanks for having me on, and I'm sorry I feel kind of bad, that intro, like NBA players and multi-million dollars being talked about, and I'm just there like just an old, sore-armed quarterback from the early 80s. So, hey, it's great talking to you, but sorry I couldn't live up. I wish I had something, a bigger title to give to you.
Hey, Stan, we'll work you into the
night.
open. We'll try to work you into the open next time for sure. Hey, I appreciate you,
Thanks,
buddy.
Tom. Great talking to you.
Good, same here. See you then. Stan Weber, just a good friend of mine over the years.